in Objective 2 of our last focus area. We're going to talk today about the threats to biodiversity. We mentioned a lot of the reasons biodiversity is so important to healthy ecosystems in our last objective. Feel free to review if you need to. Now we're going to talk to some threats of biodiversity, and one is extinction rates. There is a gradual process, which means slow, of species becoming extinct that's known as background extinction. It's happened throughout the history of Earth. It's kind of normal, I hate to say, but it's just called background because you don't notice it. It's very slow over many, many years, and some species go extinct as things change, their environment may change, or new organisms evolve that are better suited for their environment. Mass extinction, however, is an event in which a large percentage of all living species become extinct in a relatively short period of time. There have been a few mass extinctions in the history of the planet. The one you're probably most familiar with would be the mass extinction when the asteroid hit the Earth, a giant asteroid hit and wiped out all the dinosaurs, but it also wiped out a large percentage of all life on Earth at the time. Here's a very interesting chart. Explain some of it and then let you look at others. This shows the estimated number of extinctions since 1600 of different groups of animals, like mammals, birds, reptiles, you can see, and so forth. And it's broken down into where they lived. So did they live on the mainland, the island, the ocean, and the total number. So if you look, 4,000 species of mammals have gone extinct in the last 400 years, which is far less than these other categories, except it's close to amphibians. But look at the percentage. It's the highest percentage. Mammals represent a low percentage of all life on Earth, so the percentage of the group that's gone extinct in the last 400 years is actually higher than the other groups. Feel free to pause and look over this a little more if you'd like. Some factors that threaten biodiversity. The biggest factor is us. We're currently in what many scientists say are a mass extinction period right now, and it's due to us. We are the event that's causing it. We're changing conditions on Earth faster than new traits can evolve, so the animals and plants and bacteria can't change or evolve quick enough. Part of that is us by burning fossil fuels. That's contributing to climate change. Part of it is us destroying habitats so that organisms don't have anywhere to live. But again, we are the biggest threat to biodiversity on this planet. Overexploitation, again caused by us, is excessive use of species that have monetary value, so they're worth something, and humans overuse it, and they can't replace itself. Bison are nearly extinct because of human hunting. Passenger pigeons are. Ocelots and rhinos are members, unfortunately, of the illegal wildlife trade, sought after for different things like the rhino horns, the ocelot pelt, its fur. So all this overexploitation is a human problem as well. Habitat loss and destroying habitats. We're the ones doing that. If an organism, a plant, an animal, well, a plant clearly can't, but if an animal can't find somewhere else to live, they're going to die. And if none of them or very few of the animals can, they're going to become extinct in a relatively short period of time, like we're seeing in the tropical rainforests right now. We're destroying the tropical rainforests at an alarmingly high rate, and that's causing a lot of extinctions to organisms that are running out of places to live. When we disrupt one organism only, and we're talking so far we've disrupted multiple, it can affect everything in the ecosystem. If we look here at a food web, I could pick any organism up here. It's going to affect every other organism. And I'll just randomly pick this one, a weird one, the sea urchin. How would removing sea urchins, let's say we introduce a pollution to this body of water and it causes the sea urchin population to go down, how would that affect killer whales or fish? Because they don't eat them. Well, here's how. Sea otters rely on sea urchins for food. So if the sea urchin population goes down, the sea otter population is going to go down as well. If there are less sea otters, there's less food for the killer whales, so their population will go down. If there are less killer whales, there's going to be more sea lions and harbor seals because they're not being hunted and killed by the killer whales. Well, if there's more sea lions and harbor seals, there's less fish because the fish they're being eaten by the more sea lions and harbor seals that are around. So everything's related. You can't afford to cause any population to be declined due to human cause. More threats, again, human caused. Something called fragmentation of habitat. Fragments means a small part. So when you break up an ecosystem into small pieces of land, like maybe you build houses in an area, well, that cuts off, maybe you destroyed a forest. It cuts off the east and west side of that forest that was once all together into two separate parts. And the smaller the piece of land, the fewer species it can support. It also means there's less opportunities to reproduce with individuals from another area. If they're separated by miles and miles of housing development, now if you live on the east side of that or the west side of that as an animal, you're probably not going to interact with each other to reproduce and keep that genetic diversity high. And when you carve large ecosystems into small parts, it increases the number of edges, like the outer boundaries, and that causes something called edge effects. Another threat to biodiversity caused by, you guessed it, humans, pollution. They can cause biodiversity stability to go down. And a big problem is something called biological magnification. This means that the concentration of something like toxic that can kill increases as you go up trophic levels. What do you mean? Okay, so if you look at this number is 0.00003 parts per million pollution in this water. So you think, who cares? That's nothing. That's not going to do any damage. But we said as we go up the food chain, that number is going to increase. That's what biological magnification means. So by the time we get up to zooplankton, now that 0.00003 is just 0.04, so it's more toxic. It might not be toxic enough to kill them. We go up one more level to the fish, now it's 0.5 parts per million. So now we probably are harming them a little. And by the time we get up two more trophic levels, 25 parts per million, it's definitely going to impact these birds. Maybe not kill them, but what this actually did was made their eggs weaker. And usually you couldn't have the baby birds survive because their eggs were so weak. Another form of pollution is acid precipitation, or acid rain more commonly. And that's by us burning chemicals that aren't natural, weren't happening before humans were around, and it's reacting with the water in the air and comes back down as acid, which can remove important nutrients from the soil that plants can't get, making it harder for the plants to survive, thus making it harder for the animals to survive because they don't have as many plants to eat from. Another problem, yet again caused by humans, that threatens biodiversity is eutrophication. When you fertilize things, like farmers fertilize their land, if they're not careful, you fertilize your grass possibly, you have a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus in that fertilizer. It helps your plants grow. But when it gets into waterways, like rivers, streams, things like that, it can cause algae to grow like crazy. Well, the algae use up the oxygen, and then it causes the things inside that river or stream or whatever to die because they don't have oxygen. So it causes the other organisms to basically suffocate, like the fish and some of the plant life in there. Another problem, yet again by us, is something called introduced species or non-native species. A lot of times it is unintentional. Barnacles stick to a boat, and the boat moves from Europe to the United States, and now that barnacle or mussel or whatever has been brought over, and it could cause damage. But sometimes people take it over to new countries or areas just because they think it's cool or fun, or maybe to hunt something that's becoming a nuisance, not realizing what that could do. But introduced species often reproduce very quickly in high numbers because they don't have any natural predators in this new area, so they become what's called invasive, and we've talked about that this year. But make sure you put all of this in your notes. You might need to pause these next few slides to help get your notes filled out. Go ahead and pause again if you need to. I think that one's in your notes for you.